Alright, so let's get started. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our YouTube channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG. Today in this lecture number 27, we are going to discuss the part second of one of the most profound political thinker, that is Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In lecture number 26, that was part first of Rousseau, we have already seen his life and time, the various writing and major writing of Rousseau, various influences on Rousseau's, and we have seen what aspects of his personality influenced his political philosophy and henceforth shaped his political thought, right? With this, let's get started with lecture number 27, that is part second of Rousseau. And in this lecture series, we will mainly see Rousseau's, the most profound concept of Rousseau, that is Rousseau's idea of social contract, right? So basically, hailing from the school of social contractualist, he will have the same string of thought as was held by his predecessors like Hobbes and Locke. They also propounded the idea on human nature, then state of nature, then social contract. On similar lines, even Rousseau's idea will have on the basis of human nature, then we will see his concept on state of nature, then finally his theory of social contract and features of social contract. This is a basic structure for today's lecture. Okay, so before further ado, let's get started with today's lecture. But before moving further, ensure to show your love by subscribing to the channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG, because support is needed the most, and also like the video if you genuinely do so, then okay. So let's start with Rousseau's on human nature. Okay, so basically Rousseau start with, in his prize winning essay, right, in the list of his magnum opuses, we have seen the prize winning essay which brought Rousseau into limelight was discourse on arts and science, right? Whether it had positively impacted the morale of individual or it had negative impact, right? And we saw how Rousseau presented very critical view of modernity, the civilizational advancement, and etc., right? So in his prize winning essay, that is discourse on arts and science, he said that man is by nature good and has been degraded by the impact of social institutions. Okay, so basically Rousseau here is propounding the idea that man is by nature good, but because of various social institutions and interaction between various social institutions, man has become degraded. Man was ignorant, innocent, and thus was happy, right? When in state of nature, that we will see in this lecture itself, that in the state of nature which was pre-property state, man was basically ignorant, man was innocent, and was happy. He did not had to bother about all the advancement, modernity, civilizational, economic gains, capitalist tendencies, and etc. And hence man was ignorant about all the worldly aspects, right, which was negatively influencing the personality of man, and thus man was innocent and was happy. He believed that nature has also gifted mankind the freedom to choose his own path. Okay, choose his own path in the sense that either he wants to lead a life, happy life, or whether he wants to pursue his passions and etc., right? So he is saying that nature has gifted mankind with the freedom to choose his own path, and this is a basic structure behind the idea of liberty, that liberty is the natural right, right? Man has been gifted by the nature to freedom to choose his own path. Man is liberal in the sense which distinguishes a man from an animal, who are basically driven by their biological instinct, right? They do not have any other aspirations than just pursuing their biological needs like procreation, sustenance, survival, and etc., right? This freedom is essential for the perfection of mankind, and hence Rousseau is propounding the idea that this particular freedom is essential for the perfection of mankind. Okay, so let's see further. Here is that basically whatever we have said, that man is by nature a good human, but due to various social interactions, he becomes kind of passionate in nature, right? But to come to that particular premise, here Rousseau propounds the idea that it is a excerpt that I am presenting from the work of Rousseau, which says that he believed that man by nature has no evil tendencies, but it is because of wrong social actions which made me evil and bitterly quarrelsome with others, right? We have seen how the personality of Rousseau was. He was frustrated. He was frustrated with all the advancement, he became quarrelsome, he became annoyed, and etc., right? So he is attributing his this particular traits of him to all the social actions that was taking shape during his time, right? Social action of what? Accumulation of wealth, accumulation of capital, wealth, and etc., right? Which was kind of leading him into a state of frustration. According to Rousseau, the original man or the natural man is nothing but pure instinct, free from all artificials and at liberty to do anything. Of them, one is self-love. So here Rousseau is propounding the idea that during the time of birth, man was basically free. Man was mainly driven by the natural instinct. Okay, man was mainly driven by the natural instinct. And what was the major natural instinct? It was basically the idea of self-love. He is saying that man, original man or the natural man, is nothing but pure instinct or the natural instinct, free from all artificialities, okay, and liberty to do anything. Of them, one is self-love, and hence self-love is one of the most important attributes when it comes to Rousseau. Okay, so Rousseau says that man has two basic natural instinct. Okay, man had two basic natural instinct. The one natural instinct which was a resultant of self-love was what? Self-preservation. Man had two natural instinct by birth. The first is self-preservation, and the second is what? The second is basically the gregarious instinct. Gregarious instinct. Okay, I'll explain what each of these natural instincts are. So basically, as a child, we all know that we have a reflex tendency in us, right? We have the natural tendency to self-preserve ourselves, right? When we were children, when we put our fingers on fire, we had that natural reflex which safeguarded us from all the external threats, right? So this is one of the natural instincts humans beings were born with. That is the natural instinct of self-preservation. What was the second instinct? It is a gregarious instinct. What is gregarious instinct? It is basically the human tendency to socialize, right? To socialize. Human tendency to socialize, to co-opt, right? To collaborate with others beings, right? This is the two basic instinct with which human beings are born with, right? And these two social instinct and their conflation led to the establishment of family and society, right? When men became assured about the self-preservation of their life, when they got this assurity that their life is safeguarded, they basically moved for the inclination towards the gregarious instinct, that is their socializing tendencies, and hence it led to the creation of family and society, right? Men wanted to socialize, right? And hence it led to the creation of family and society. And till this particular situation, till the creation of family and society, here the society is the society of state of nature, where the men are basically driven by their natural instinct. What were the natural instinct? The natural instinct of self-preservation and gregarious tendencies. Until all these things happened, men were basically free. Men were free. Men were happy. Men were free and happy. Okay, but let's see further. These two instinct, that is of self-preservation and gregarious instinct. Okay, I will just write in little bit. The two instinct which Rousseau is talking about is, first is self preservation and second is gregarious or socializing instinct. Okay, so these two are the natural instinct which Rousseau is talking about. So he says that these two instincts give birth to the earliest of all societies and natural one, namely the family. Okay, so what is the earliest of all society? It is basically family, right, where the one individual socialized with other to create a family, right? And this is the what? This is the emergence of society. This is the first step towards establishment of what? Society. And what led to this particular establishment of society? It is basically the complex interaction between self-preservation and gregarious tendency in the human beings. Okay, up to this stage of development, here Rousseau is saying that up to this stage of development, that is establishment of family and society, everything became okay. Up to this stage of development, everything is natural and man remains as free as he was born, right? So until this stage, that was creation of family and society, man was basically free, okay, and natural, right? What is natural? He is basically free from all the modern aspirations. He is free from all the modern aspirations, right? This is the idea which is being propounded by who? The Rousseau. Okay, but beyond this stage, what happened is that everything became unnatural and man is everywhere in chain. Okay, but beyond this stage, what happened? But beyond this stage, beyond the stage of family and society, what happened was man became unnatural. Man became what? Man became unnatural and everywhere in chains, right? And thus it is very famously said that man is born free, but everywhere in chains. Okay, in chains, right? So this is the idea which is being propounded by Rousseau, that beyond the stage of family and society, man basically became unnatural and everywhere in chains. Why man became unnatural and everywhere in chains? Because original man was free and independent as his actions were based on instinct, but his efforts to make himself perfect, okay, his action to make himself perfect tied him to so much artificialities. Okay, this is an excerpt from Rousseau's magnum opus, that is Social Contract itself, right? Because why I am mentioning all these things is because there is various concern or doubts which was being sent to me by a mail that, sir, what kind of source are you following and etc., right? So the list of sources which I am preferring or referring here is that my own experience, my own notes based on my experience, and second, the original works, okay, original works of thinkers, okay, which will kind of give what? Credibility to the content that you attempt in the answer. Okay, that is why through notes I get the proper understanding which is being created, which is being a product of my labor and hard work since last 3 to 4 years, and the official sources and magnum opuses of the thinkers which give it some credibility, right? So that you can confidently produce this content in the answer, right? When we talk about Rousseau, his most profound statement is that man is born free but everywhere found in chains. Okay, why he is found in chains? Though man was born free, right, he was living a natural life which was mainly driven by natural instinct. But after the civilizational influences affected man, he found himself in chains. Why? Because he got into the aspirations to become a perfect man. Why? Because of societal actions, right? Because of societal actions, social desirability, social interactions, he wanted to seek perfection, right? Because of different social interaction, right? And just in order to pursue the dream to become perfect, he engaged himself into a lot of artificialities. Okay, artificiality. This is what Rousseau is saying in his magnum opus. Okay, it is not something what I am saying, but it is something which is being said by the goat, that is Rousseau himself. Okay, so when man's evil part becomes more powerful, okay, he subjected to the power of state. Okay, so in the pursuance of this artificial nature or the artificial personality, man evil part, okay, just let me clear the board. So just in the pursuance of artificial personality, man evil's part started to surface. Okay, started to surface. What is this artificial personality? Let's say in the group of friends, if I want to show myself extraordinary than others, right, either I will do that in very much positive manner, either I will do that in positive manner by honing my skills and doing or laboring one step extra than what my peers are doing, or in negative sense, right, I will try dominating my peers, right, I will try engaging in lot of arguments and etc. And if all these things happens, what it will lead to? It will lead to the surfacing of my evil part, right? It will lead to surfacing of my evil part, right? And when Rousseau realized all this development, he basically gave the idea of subjection of humans, subjection of humans to whom? To state. Okay, subjection of humans to the power of state. This is the basic idea, this is the flow, right? How he started with a natural state, that is humans were good, but through the progressive society, through the development of capitalism and all the modern civilization, the evil part of human beings started to surface, which led Rousseau to propound the idea of subjection of humans to the power of state. And hence, because of this reason, he will articulate about his theory of social contract, right? So reason was outgrowth of human development. Reason was not natural but with man, but artificial. Okay, he is saying that reason was not something natural, right? Here again, reason is a negative connotation for Rousseau. Why? Because in state of nature, when men do not had reason, men were basically innocent, right? Men were basically free from reason, and hence they were innocent. They were what? They were happier. They were coexisting in harmony. But once through progression, when reason developed in man, man started expliciting himself in very much artificial manner, which led to the surface of his evil part, which led to the conclusion that man should be subjected to the power of what? Power of state. Okay, so this is the basic idea. Okay, so that is what in Rousseau's prize-winning essay, that is Discourse on Arts and Science, he said that man is by nature good and has degraded by the impact of social institutions. So whatever story that we have just seen is basically the cause of degradation of the natural nature of man, that is his goodness. Okay, this is what is being said by Rousseau. Alright, so man was ignorant and innocent and thus was happy. He believed, okay, so we are again coming to this part that man was ignorant and innocent and thus was happy. He believed that nature has also gifted mankind the freedom to choose his own path, which distinguishes a man from an animal. This freedom is essential for the perfection of mankind, right? And through his idea of social contract, he wants to lead the human beings back into the freedom, which is essential for the perfection of mankind. This is the basic idea behind his perspective on human nature. Now let's see his idea on state of nature, what he has to say on state of nature. Okay, so basically it symbolizes the life of man before the beginning of modern age or so-called civilization, right? What is state of nature in Rousseau's social contract? It is basically the life of man. Okay, it is basically the life of man before the beginning of modern age or so-called civilization. Which civilization? Basically the IR civilization or industrial civilization, right, or modern civilization, right? So according to Rousseau, state of nature is a state of bliss and so perfect happiness, right? State of nature was a state of bliss, which was a perfect happiness. Man was happy because he was acting according to his wish, right? So what is the idea here? Again, Rousseau devised his state of nature into two phases, right? That is, one was pre-property state, one was basically a pre-property state of nature, where man was mainly driven by their natural instinct, which we have just seen in the previous slide, that was basically the self-love or self-preservation, and it was a gregarious socializing tendency, right? So in pre-property state of nature, man did not develop that complexities of reason, which led a sense of passion in man, right? And man started acquiring lot of properties, right? They started bounding a lot of land, a piece of land, right? So when these all things were not in place, so men were basically happier, men were basically peaceful, men were basically existing in harmony with each other. This is what Rousseau has to say when it comes to pre-property state of nature. Basically the major concern of Rousseau is the property, right? His predecessor like Locke and Hobbes, they basically talks or consider property as the natural right, that is right to life, liberty and property. In the same time, the property is a major concern for Rousseau, because property is one of the major cause for what? Unhappiness in man. Property is one of the major cause of disharmony in the society. That is why he is circumventing his entire theory of social contract in and around property, right? And this is why Rousseau is one of the most revolutionary thinker, because the other social contractualists like Hobbes and Locke, they basically considered property because they themselves belong to a possessive individualist class or the capitalist class, and they circumvented the idea of property with their social contract in very positive manner. But here for Rousseau, where he is kind of propounding a more subaltern perspective. What is subaltern perspective? It is basically a perspective of the have-nots. It is basically a perspective of the proletariat, when I say in Marxian terms, right? Or it is basically a perspective from the have-nots class of the group. Okay, the people who do not have a much capitalist orientation, right? And Rousseau belonged to that particular class. If Locke and Hobbes belonged to capitalist class, Rousseau was the propounder of subaltern class or have-not class, right? And for him, property or acquisition of property was one of the major concern. And he says that in pre-property state of nature, men were basically happier, men were coexisting in harmony. But what happened in post-property state of nature? In post-property state of nature, the situation became chaotic. Why? Because men started acquiring lot of property, right? Men started acquiring lot of property. Men started bounding piece of lands, right? And hence chaos started to emerge. Trouble started to begin because there was conflict due to the limitations of the land. Resources were limited, but the aspirations were unlimited. Okay, and hence just to acquire a limited piece of resources, people were engaging in lot of conflict, people were engaging in lot of trouble, right? And that is why Rousseau's state of nature, that was pre-property or state of nature, was an ideal nature, right? Our ideal aspirations, which Rousseau is wanting to go back to, right? And his post-property state of nature is a troubled state of nature. Therefore, social contract comes as device to solve the troubled state of things, right? And that is why he is devising his theory of social contract to basically deals with this troubled phase of post-property state of nature. His major ideal or his major concern is not pre-property state of nature where men were basically happier, they were existing in harmony, but his major concern is post-property state of nature when men became progressive through the development of their reason, which was the product of the complex interaction of the social actions and institutions, right, which led to a chaos and trouble, right? And hence Rousseau's social contract is kind of solution to deal with the trouble which is a product of post-property state of nature, right? So what does this particular idea is symbolizing? It is basically symbolizing the situation of modernization, IR and capitalism, right? This is the idea behind Rousseau's state of nature, right? So now let's see Rousseau's social contract. We have seen Rousseau's perspective on human nature. We have seen Rousseau's idea on the state of nature, where he mainly classifies his state of nature on the basis of pre-property state of nature and post-property state of nature, where his pre-property state of nature was basically an ideal state of nature where men were very much happier. They were only satiated or satisfied with their herd of animals, and they were enjoying the life like nomads. They were roaming from places to places and very much were happier. But when the post-property state of nature emerged, when men started acquiring property, they were started having their property or bounding their property, there emerged a trouble phase or chaotic situation when men started a fight among themselves in the society which was existing peacefully in the pre-property state of nature, right? And hence Rousseau propounded his idea of social contract mainly to deal with the post-property state of nature, which was very much chaotic in situation, right? So Rousseau's concept of social contract is kind of mixture of the view of Hobbes and Locke, okay, and sort of improvement upon the two. According to him, soon after the idea of private property, the society became disordered, as I have just said, disturbed and chaos, okay. There they began to feel the necessity of bringing about the old order of calmness and happy in life, right? So this problem was solved by the creation of social or a political association to which all the members of society agreed, okay. So basically here the Rousseau social contract is kind of conflation or kind of golden mean between Hobbes idea and Locke idea. What was the Hobbes idea? Hobbes idea was basically subjection of human beings to a powerful state, that was Leviathan, right? But what was Locke idea? It is basically Locke's perspective was positive. So Locke believed that men are able to rule themselves, right? Because men are social animal. Men are driven by the sense of reason, right? And hence Locke believed that men are able to rule themselves, and hence he propounded the idea of general will, right? He propounded the idea of general will, that men through social contract they will engage in a general consensus and they will devise their own state, right? And hence Rousseau is a kind of golden mean between Hobbes idea and Locke idea. He is saying that the men should be subjected to the powerful state, but only through a general will, only through a general consensus, not in an arbitrary manner as was the case in Hobbes, right? Neither in the case of Locke, where he just gave more emphasis on the general will and social contract, where it was not necessity that even the future generation will be abided by the idea of social contract which was formulated by their forefathers, right? And here's Rousseau's take a golden mean or average of both the ideas, that is Hobbes and Locke, where he propounds the idea that men should be subjected to a powerful state because to solve the situation which was product of post property state of nature, but only with a condition, that is general will, that is mutual consent, that is mutual consensus of the people, of the each and every people of the society, right? In Locke we have also seen that he propounded the idea of the direct will and tacit will, right, where tacit will was the will of minority or the people who do not confounded to the idea of the majority, right? So here Rousseau is making sure that the will or the consensus of everyone was taken into the consideration, right? So since the present life, so let's see, this was the context of Rousseau's social contract, right? So one thing needs to be kept in mind is that his approach will always be the golden mean of Hobbes and Locke idea, right, where he is kind of taking a middle path of Hobbes and Locke idea, right? He is also considering the Hobbes idea, that is the citizens should be subjected to the powerful state, but he is also giving more emphasis on the Locke idea because Locke was one of the major influence on Rousseau, that the general will or general consensus of each and every member of the society should be taken into consideration in order to subjection of government, right? So since the present life is not the life of happiness which was the present life, the post property state of nature, Rousseau suggested that men will enter into the contract, right, just to solve the trouble or chaotic situation which was the product of a resultant of post property state of nature. The people will enter into the social contract. According to Rousseau, there are two options with the people, right? When Rousseau, let's say there is a small village, just to give you a small story, there is a small state, right, a beautiful valley, as is the case in Switzerland. There was a serene, happy life which was existing in pre-property state of nature. But let's say there is someone from, let's say, England, right, or someone driven by more capitalist mindset or imperial mindset. He enters into a valley of, let's say, Switzerland, right, and he says that everyone are existing in mutual coexistence, cooperation, collaboration, harmony, and etc., right? And seeing all these things, what he does is he sees all these things and he thinks of his personal investment, right? He says, let's buy a piece of land here so that I can come and do my business or live here peacefully, right? This is what people generally do. Wherever we find a society is good, wherever we see if people are existing in harmony, if everyone are good, we generally tend to associate ourselves with them either by buying a property and etc., right? So this is what a story sounds like, right? So let's say a man called John, he comes from, let's say, London, earning all the wealth from industries and etc. He plans to acquire a piece of land, right? When he acquires a piece of land, he starts boundarying this particular piece of land, right? And men here, they all were existing in the pre-property state of nature, where basically the idea of communism was prevailing, right? That a particular land or a cluster of land will be held in common ownership. But when they see a particular foreign person, he enters into their land and starts boundarying this particular thing, the sense of passion gets ignited in them as well. They also see it a kind of promising that even we should do something like that, because if everyone comes in, they take a property, they start boundarying it, then what we will left with, right? What the people of the valley, that is Switzerland, will be left with, right? So this is how the idea of post property emerged in them. And when everyone was thinking on the same line, they all wanted to acquire property, boundary them and acquire the wealth and etc., there emerged a situation of chaos, right? So in today's term, it might not sound lot concerning, but during that time it was a lot concerning, because it was a sudden transition from a harmonious community based state to a more modernized, civilized, capitalist based state, right, where there is lot of investment, there is lot of spurt in trade, commerce, industrialization and etc. And it was major concerning thought or major concerning concern from the thinkers like Rousseau, who basically who basically hailed from France but spent most of his time in where Geneva, Switzerland, right? So let's see his idea. We have seen the story, right? What led to the development of the sense of passion in man, which led to the post-property state of nature, right? So according to Rousseau, there are two options, right? Either man can go back to the state of nature, that is pre-property state of nature, which is not practicable or which is not practical and even possible to go back to the pre-property state of nature, or the second option they have is to make changes in the present system. How they will make changes in the present system? By or through social contract, right? Through inclusion of general will, and they come into a contract so as to give rise to a more harmonious state, right? So in present system we can be free subject to the condition we are able to live according to our real will, right? What is real will here? The real will emphasizes the liberty and freedom of individual, right? So as we have already seen in the influence on Rousseau's political theory is based upon tension between tension between his idea of individual liberty and freedom versus general will, right? So here he is making that balance that in present system we can be free subject to the condition that we are able to live according to our real will. Man is free when governed by the law where man has participated in making of such laws, right? So here he is kind of balancing his tension between or his contradiction between the freedom of individual versus the general will or subjection to the powerful authority, where he says that the subjection to a authority or political subjection to state can be viable only if that is formulated through the real will of the individual, where the freedom of individual is taken into consideration and each and everyone have participated in making of such laws, right? Why? Because the real will be taken into consideration of each and everyone. Okay, it is based on the real will, subject to the condition, it is based on the real will. So this is the idea behind today's participatory democracy, right? Everyone are subjected to what? Everyone are subjected to a particular government, right? But the only condition is that the real will of everyone, each and everyone, is taken into the consideration, right? So here Rousseau is propounding the idea of what? Participatory democracy. His social contract is a basis for participatory democracy, right? Where what is participatory democracy? Participatory democracy is basically political subjection to the government, but on the basis of general will, of each and everyone, right? Where what is general will? General will is basically the active participation of each and everyone in making of such law, where the real will of each and everyone is taken into consideration, right? And hence Rousseau's social contract is very similar to that of the idea of participatory democracy, right? Why Rousseau is propounding the idea of participatory democracy? Is there any basis of that? Yes, there is a basis. The basis is, though Rousseau was from France, he spent many of his years in Geneva, right, where the institution of direct democracy was in existence, right? Hence he becomes the champion of direct democracy, that is participatory democracy, right? Switzerland is being a small country with very minor population. The idea of direct democracy, right, like direct referendum and etc., which we see even to these days, memorandums and etc., referendums and etc., is very much pertinent to the idea of direct democracy, which is in practice even to these days in countries like Switzerland, right? And as Rousseau spent majority of his years in Geneva, he was also acquainted with the idea of direct democracy, and hence there is an idea of participatory democracy which is similar to his idea of social contract, which is inherent in his idea of social contract. So the genesis can be traced to the direct democracy which was prevailing in the country like Switzerland, right? So this was all about his idea of social contract. So the things which needs to be taken into consideration is that his social contract is basically a solution to the post property state of nature, where the state of nature was basically a chaotic, right? So he had two options, right? He had given two options to the people, either to go back to the state of nature, which was not possible or practicable, or make change in the present system, right? What is the present system? Though there was a kind of democracy or direct democracy or communism which was existing in Switzerland, he made that let's make some changes in order to lead a more harmonious life. What changes did they make? They formulated the idea of subjection of citizens to the authority on the basis of the real will or the general will, where the real will of each and everyone were being taken into consideration, right? Which led to the idea of participatory democracy. What does that mean? That everyone had participated in order to make such laws which will be followed by each and every citizens of the state, right? This is the idea of social contract of Rousseau, right? Now let's see some of the feature of social contract. Okay, so first feature of social contract is surrender to society, right? What are they surrendering to society? Individual surrendered his everything to society, and yet a member of a society, and as a member of a society he retained everything with himself, right? How is this possible? Here it is being said that individual surrendered his everything to society. Everything to society. What was everything? Basically the everything was natural instinct, right? Natural instinct which man was driven by in his state of nature, which was everything for man, and hence man decides to surrender his everything that was right, which man was engaging in state of nature, and yet as a member of society he remained everything with him, right? Why? Because by agreeing to the social contract, by agreeing to the mutual agreement within the people, he is retaining that freedom. Why? Because he has rendered his real will in formulating his law, right? And since he has that real will and right to formulate, right to make law and right to decide whom he will be subjected to, right? And hence the member of a society retained everything with him. That is, man is sovereign. Okay, what is the second feature? The second feature is basically gain to everyone. There is a gain to everyone. How there is gain to everyone? In his contract everyone seemed to be gainer and none appeared to be loser. Okay, how everyone seemed to be gainer and none seemed to be a loser? Because everyone participated in the making of law, right? And hence the real will of each and everyone were taken into consideration, right? And hence by giving their real will, everyone gained the importance being a citizen of a society, and none appeared to be loser, right? Because there was no side effect or no counterproductive impact of the making of the social contract. Surrender to the state, right? So the rights were surrendered not to the individual, as in the case of Hobbes, where the rights were surrendered to the Leviathan, which became absolute. Here the rights are being surrendered to the state, right? Which is a body politic to whom everyone surrendered, right? And hence that particular body will be responsible to the real will and general will of the people. What is the fourth feature? It is a organic concept. Rousseau's social contract is an organic concept. How? The contract had organic character. Why? Because it was moral, collective, and had a public person, right? Or had a public opinion, right? So his social contract was organic character. Why? Because it was collective in nature. That is, it included a consensus from everyone, right? Consensus from everyone who were basically moral and had a public opinion. They were publicly aware about the various things which were shaping or taking place in their particular society, right? And hence it was more organic concept. The fifth one is transformational. His social contract was transformational. How it was transformational? Under this contract, an individual got material and moral transformation, right? What was the material transformation? They ensured that the property is equally distributed, right? That is economic equality. The idea of economic equality. This is what is the material transformation. What is moral transformation? The moral transformation is basically political and other equality, right? There was no class or any division which was which was resultant of his social contract, right? And hence people became morally transformed, right, where everyone became more or less equal. With this, we are done with the feature of Rousseau's social contract and his idea of social contract, right? So just to give you a basic summary, his perspective on human nature is that human nature were basically born free and good, but with the existence of or the progressive of society or civilization, man started becoming more pessimistic. Okay, why? Because a sense of reason developed in them. When there was no reason in man, men were basically innocent, ignorant about the progression, and hence they were happier. Then he came to state of nature, right? Because of the development of reason in man became more progressive in nature, right? And when they were born in the pre-property state of nature, they were basically staying in harmony, they were mutually coexisting and cooperating with each other, and hence they were happier. But when there was a boundary of property or acquisition of property happened, which led to the post-property state of nature, the situation became more chaotic, more problematic, and hence to deal with this particular post-property state of nature, where society was more chaotic, the society was more problematic, the society was more insecure, he opines the idea of social contract, which is more in a nature of participatory democracy, where the subjection of citizens is to a state is only taken into consideration through a general will of the people, where the real will of each and everyone is taken into consideration, and they mutually design their law to which they wanted to subject themselves, right? So this is the basic idea behind his idea of social contract, and we are done with today's lecture basically. So you guys can try answering this particular question, that Rousseau's general will is Hobbes's Leviathan with its head chopped off, right? Hobbes's Leviathan with its head chopped off. Just to give you an idea, what does this mean? Basically, as we have seen that Rousseau's idea of social contract is kind of golden mean between Hobbes and Locke. Here, Hobbes' absolute Leviathan or absolute state is kind of being degraded, right, or kind of moderated for citizens, right? And he is taking more liberal or more individualistic perspective, where individual freedom plus general will is taken into consideration. Hence Rousseau's general will is Hobbes's Leviathan with its head chopped off. Comment 15 marks. You can like try and start you can try giving a context about Rousseau's, then Hobbes, then their idea about social contract methodology, and etc. This is how you can approach. You guys can try attempting this particular answer, and you can send your answers in this mail handle. I will evaluate it and come back with a feedback. Okay, so with this we are done with today's lecture. Make sure to follow our Telegram channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG. Okay, where I share a free and most quality oriented UPSC materials, mainly PSIR based, and also the others. I will also share some of the questions which you can keep on writing and send your answers. I will keep on checking and give you a feedback, right? So make sure to follow and join the Telegram community, and also ensure to show your love by subscribing to the channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG. And we are done with today. Have a good day, and remember the motto statement, that is as you strive so you thrive. आप जितनी मेहनत करेंगे उतनी फल मिलेगी. So with this, signing off. Thank you.